Welcome everyone to our latest segment here at PRN, where we break down the latest topics happening around the world. I'm Melissa Perez.
And I'm Uriel Villegas.
And on today's episode, we, like you, have been living in the headlines of the biggest European conflict since World War II, where Russia invaded Ukraine. And yes, we have so many questions. So we did a lot of research. We went to various sources to piece together what's happening, what exactly led to the invasion, why it happened, and what we can tell you is happening as of today. Let's start with the last. As of today, March 10th, Ukraine is living its 14th day of Russian invasion, ever since Putin excused his need to invade as a special military operation. He phased this in under this pretense of protecting Russian nationals from what he called a genocide, an allegation that has been backed with no evidence whatsoever. And he furthered that pretense and he continued his narrative, and he declared that parts of Ukraine, specifically northern parts, Luhansk and Donetsk, as independent people's republic. So this basically meant that those two parts of Ukraine weren't a part of Ukraine. So he came in and said that he needed to protect these people that were going to be under attack, specifically by the Ukrainian people. So I really don't understand why this was his excuse to come in. So as the news continued to develop, we saw that Putin came out and he did a broadcast, a televised speech where he said exactly what he planned to do and exactly why he planned to do this. And I don't think we should be so surprised that he actually did this. It's been months of preparation. It's been premeditated. He has been literally talking about this for years. He basically wants it known that this is his legacy. He wants to restore what was great Russia. He wants to bring the Soviet Union back. He wants to gain the territory that was lost during the Soviet Union and bring it back to Russia. So I don't think we should be so surprised. It's something that was going to happen. It was just the tip of the iceberg when Ukraine decided to, or had meetings in February to join NATO, which is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. We know this is a military alliance formed in 1949 by 12 countries. The big players here are the US, Canada, the UK, and France. And they made an agreement to come to one another's aid in an event of an armed attack against any one member state. So he was really nervous that Ukraine was going to join NATO, and this essentially like catapulted his attack and his invasion into the Ukraine. And that was the real cause of the invasion at this point in time, because he has been very clear. He has been very open and transparent and honest about his mission, his legacy as a president, as a dictator. He definitely wants to bring Russia to its greatest glory. And in his mind and his mindset is that he wants to bring it back to the great Russia, the Soviet Union. He wants to regain the territory that was lost during that time. And he said it on multiple occasions that this is the legacy that he wants. So ultimately, we shouldn't be so surprised that he's doing this. Essentially, it might have gotten sped up just because of this NATO accordance that came into play, but it was something that was going to happen. And I personally think that economic sanctions are not going to be enough to derail his plan. I don't think that it's going to really, it's going to hinder him, but I don't think he really cares. I think, honestly, he lives for his legacy, he lives for his country, and he's going to do whatever it takes to get it back. And I honestly think that there needs to be more backup. There needs to be more action, and I feel like we've had a couple of years to really be thinking that this could be an honest threat, but we kind of pushed it back and said, oh, he's not going to do that, but he did. And now it's time to react, and I think we need to react in a way that's going to be efficient and not going to promote this kind of unbalanced world where all the power is up for grabs. So as of today, this is what we know. Russian forces have made little advancement in the encirclement of the capital of Kyiv, which means that Russian military is actually struggling to put together enough conventional military force. So here I want to note something. Conventional military force means like the normal means about going on seizing another country. So this means boots on the ground. This means coordinated attacks. They're having troubles kind of efficiently executing this, and that is what's making it harder. Also, the Ukrainian people are putting up a fight. They are standing their ground, they are with their country, and they are fighting tooth and nail to survive. They did not expect this. Putin thought that Ukraine was going to fall within a couple of days, and it hasn't. It's been 2 weeks now, and they are still putting up a good fight. We know that this is due to a lack of communication. There has been a lot of chatter between plenty of articles that Russian military operations between themselves have not been communicating efficiently, which means that resources that they need or communication of what needs to be going where is not happening. And that's what we know that has hindered their attacks and has not made them efficient. Now let's take a look at the map in order to understand where Russian and Ukrainian forces are and what barriers have they placed. So Russian troops near Chernihiv appear to be moving east, which seems like as a power move to link with their troops near Sumy in order to consolidate in the attempt to take Kyiv, which is in the north. So some big takeaways that we want to highlight are that the Ukrainian forces have challenged the Russian military in the eastern outskirts of Kyiv. So they have been putting up a fight. Like I said, they are fighting tooth and nail for what they believe in, for their country, for their homes. And the Russian military did not think that this was going to happen. Again, Russian forces are not communicating efficiently, which means that it has led to delayed attacks and gathering of resources. Also, driving north from Crimea toward the southeastern city of Zaporizhia, forces are moving from the north to the southern eastern city because there is a large nuclear plant. It's the largest in Europe. And as soon as they gain control of this area, it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, so Russia's actions have prompted a massive backlash all around the world. And specifically the West, the United States, the European Union, Great Britain, Canada. And I think this marks the end of the unipolar order. And by that I mean that, after the fall of the Soviet Union, the United States was basically the dominant power around the world, and they called the shots on everything. And I think now the fact that Russia had the guts to invade Ukraine on European territory shows that Russia is challenging American power, and this action by him shows that. And so, I mean, Europe as well is breaking apart, is breaking away from Russia. So we see this in the actions of the United States, the United Kingdom, the Canada, and other Western powers. So, for example, they have banned Russia from the world's financial system by banning them from SWIFT. And I mean, at that point, the transactions made in Russia are almost impossible to make. And on top of that, NATO has activated their response force, the first time in history. And Germany, surprisingly, this caught many by surprise. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz announced that they would revamp their military and spend more than 2% of their GDP on the military. And again, this is a reversal of decades-long policy in which they kind of neglected their military, but now they're seeing the Russian threat on their continent, and they're deciding to arm up. And I mean, this just signals that they're breaking away from Russia. They're pushing it aside, and I think this will push Russia towards another great power, which is China. And I think it's a decoupling of that system in which Russia, China, Iran, and other totalitarian powers are gonna unite as a front, and the Western democracies like Canada, United States, Europe, the UK are going to form their own alliances and strengthen their resolve against China and Russia. So, I mean, that has massive ramifications for the entire world. And on top of that, these actions also show that Russia's war in Ukraine has backfired on him. Regardless of whether he wins or not, Russia's actions have revitalized NATO as a force. They have revitalized the West because they responded fiercely against his war in Ukraine. And I think that's the last thing he wanted, because, I mean, the whole pretext supposedly for his invasion was that, NATO was encroaching on his sphere of influence. But now what has happened? I mean, NATO is now deciding to arm up. The United States is now guaranteed to be a big player in Europe for decades to come. And I mean, it's been isolated. Financially, it's isolated, and it only has a few allies. It has China, which is of course a powerful ally, but I mean, there's something beneficial coming out of it overall. Even if Ukraine falls under Russian control, they still have major problems financially, militarily, and domestically. I mean, people in their country, they're going to react to these actions. Financially, it's going to hurt them. And I think they're going to suffer the consequences for decades to come. And with that, it's also interesting to consider, China's role in this and their own foreign policy goals. I mean, prior to this invasion, they've been talking a lot about taking Taiwan back into their fold. They want to invade Taiwan. They've been talking about that. And I want to pose a question to you guys. Do you think this invasion makes it more likely that China will pursue their own invasion in Taiwan, after seeing the massive response from the West? Or do you believe that China will pursue a more diplomatic approach?
Oil prices have been going through the roof. We've been seeing this trend for a couple of months now. It's not something that just happened overnight. We've literally been seeing the rise of gas prices at our pump for the past year, I would say. And I want to really dissect why this is actually happening. Essentially, I want to also kind of debunk this myth that it's because Russia has invaded Ukraine that this is happening. So the fact of the matter is that a series of missteps have been taken from our administration, and that has led to the root of the problem of the oil crisis that we're living today. Essentially, investments that have been made in Russia and Venezuela in the past propagate this need to go to get resources that we have here in the USA. So I don't understand why we're going to other countries to get resources that we can tap into today and not have this crisis of oil and not have gas prices be through the roof. We're causing a dependency that we do not need. We're causing a dependency in other countries of we're relying on other countries knowing that we have the resources right here in our country.
And I want to add, I mean, we shouldn't be depending on authoritarian governments like Venezuela for our oil. I mean, we can produce it ourselves and be independent from them, and that way we have a lot more leeway and a lot more pull when it comes to foreign policy. If we had been independent from gas, we wouldn't be scrambling to find other resources. And so I think it's important that the Biden administration really addresses that. And with that, we conclude this episode of Panther Politics. Thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you all after the break.